Hey, good morning, Faith Bible Chapel and friends. We are happy to have you with us for today's edition of Three Pastors Keeping It 100. Usually Georgia is with us, but she is on vacation and enjoying some well-earned time off. So we're hoping she comes back refreshed and rested. So she's having a great time. And then last week, if you recall, we were really talking about, and part of this really goes side by side with, we've been working our way through Romans on Sundays. And so what we've been doing is just kind of supplementing that with kind of some open dialogue with Pastor Al and myself. And just really kind of processing that a little bit and hopefully helping you continue to process if you're hopefully watching and staying up with us, because there's really no more important book in the New Testament to really get your mind around as far as doctrine and understanding salvation and its implications for how we live life. So with that, we're going to touch on a little bit of what we talked about Sunday, which was really kind of fun because the Lord just kind of downloaded something to me, notes, everything was prepared, and he just really kind of caught me on something that on Sunday morning that really kind of caught my attention and got me really processing, and that is that we live in an age where there is so much division and there is so much tension, and honestly, with that comes a massive amount of anger. And here's the thing: is like for me, I can't watch news anymore because it makes me so angry. And and I've been struggling with anger as a lot of us are, where we've been dealing with just different things, and some of which, really seem outrageous. And it just really started to dawn on me a couple of things. And one of those is that there are organizations out there and people out there who really seek to outrage you, because in that outrage, that gives them advantage over you. And I think it's important for us to start really thinking very carefully about what we listen to and understand that many of those, what do you want to say? The influencers is a popular new slang word now, right?
Exactly.
Influencers.
Yep.
And the people that influence us and seek to influence us very often have an agenda.
Right.
And the truth of the matter is I think we're influencers.
Right.
And we do certainly have an agenda. But we'll be straight up with you, because that agenda is we want you to have a rich, lasting, growing, passionate, life-giving relationship with Jesus Christ, so that you will spend eternity with him. And you'll have to put up with us, but there's probably a place to get away if you need to.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you're probably right. But I just didn't want to scare them off.
Right, I hear you.
I
hear you.
But with that, we that you would live with him forever, and that's really the agenda. We do this as just part of the ministry of Faith Bible Chapel.
Right.
And so we don't have advertisers or any of that, because really we have one sponsor,
right?
And he's the one we're trying to please.
Exactly. I like that. So so these influencers, though, they have their agenda. Right.
And it's so funny, because I really think that their profit motive very often, or their agenda motive, far surpasses their concern about the well-being of people and of this nation.
It's about the numbers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. See, that's so important.
And you brought that up because I've been really thinking about that, especially in the fitness industry. There's a lot of, what'd you call it, influencer, you know what I'm saying, that have no idea what they're talking about.
Ooh.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But they got thousands of followers.
Yeah.
And it's like you said it, man, it's really not about the individual that they're trying to help. It's about the numbers. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? How many followers do I have?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, that's...
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you're more aware of what's happening on the online world than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And, but with that, I know that people on YouTube and other places that once you hit a certain threshold of followers, then at that point there are sponsors who are willing
Exactly.
to pay so that you're advertising their product.
Right.
And so if you get enough followers, then you start making some bank.
Making money.
And I don't fault anybody who honestly has something to share,
Right,
and
right,
they gain a
right.
following. And there are a whole group of probably millennials and and Gen Zers and groups who have figured this out, and they have something to offer.
Right,
And they're
right,
making
right.
good money because
Right.
they're influencers and they have sponsors.
Right.
I don't have a problem with that if what you're doing is helping people.
Right. Exactly.
And or at least isn't hurting people.
Right.
And I applaud that. I that's ingenuity. That's entrepreneurial.
Right.
And quite frankly, if I thought I could do that, I would do it.
Right,
You know?
right, right.
And I guess this is kind of imitation of that. So I mean that as a attaboy, you know, for people who have that ingenuity and that know-how, and I admire that. But man, when we've got people who are willing to divide a nation and really incite hate,
Right. Right.
and you know, it's sad because I've talked to person after person after person who have lost relationship with like siblings and parents and children, and best friends who have ceased to be friends because of politics.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And quite frankly, I've gotten caught up into the politics to where my anger and has really was turning into hatred.
Right,
And,
right.
and I'll just be really transparent. As part of what happened is the Holy Spirit just kind of knocked me on the head and just said, "This, you've been falling into this."
Right. Right.
And really trying to repent, which means change of mind.
Right. Yeah.
Really trying to get my heart on track with what God has called us to be as His people, set
Right.
apart from all this garbage.
Right, right, right. And that's you know, it's easy to get caught up in things like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I think the issue is, like you said, man, when it begins to break up family, when it begins to break up relationships, things like that, because that's not of God.
No.
You know what I'm saying? So
Would you repeat that? Because that's so important for people to understand.
yeah, that's not of God. Point
Exactly.
blank, you know.
Yes.
So, and our relationship with one another should always go deeper than politics.
Oh,
You know
Lord
what I'm
help us,
saying?
Please, yes.
So, yeah. So be careful out there, man. Don't let politics, because there's nothing good in this world. Point blank,
Oh,
nothing good.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like it's not worth it. And I'm like you. I cannot follow the news. I cannot. You know, because the ghetto side of me started wanting to come out. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And anger and hatred and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't have time for that, man.
No, and honestly, His people, not just us as people in the ministry.
Right.
Because we're all called to quote the ministry.
Ministry,
unquote.
yep.
Some of it is like what we do, but wherever you're at, you're called to be in the ministry.
Right.
If you're working, if you're getting an education, if you're an educator, if you're at home and part of a family, we are all called to be quote in the ministry. Unquote.
Right.
And you can't do that when hate is cluttering up your heart.
Right.
And it's none of us have an excuse to hate.
Right.
And so that and you know, I mean, and the thing with the study that we've been going through in Romans is that when we were God's enemies, He loved us.
He still loved us. Yeah.
He loved
Yeah.
us as His enemies. That is crazy. You know, so hard for us to. And when I say crazy, I mean getting our minds and hearts wrapped around that reality.
Yep. Exactly.
You know, because we're so cool with our own self. So you know that what we've done is like, well, that's understandable.
Right.
And then
Right.
people who are different than us, then that's not understandable.
Right.
And somehow they're bad and we're okay.
Right,
And that's
right.
a lie.
Yep,
That's
lie.
a deception.
Yep.
And so, you know, here I was, God's enemy, and He loved me. And we are so quick in this environment that has been created to start hating people.
For stupid reasons.
Stupid.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Stupid reasons.
Yeah. I mean, what if God behaved like that? We'd all be burnt cinders right now.
Dude, and this is what I think people don't understand when we get to that scripture, that while we was yet sinners, Christ still died for us. He loves us and things like this, which he knew everything that we would ever do,
Yeah.
but he still loved us anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and this happens to everybody because we're the ones on the mic. You get to hear ours,
Right.
but we don't get to hear yours. But I know everybody that sometimes we shock ourselves because it's like, oh my gosh, I thought I was past that.
Right.
And when that happens, and then of course we feel horrible, and conviction is healthy.
Right.
Condemnation is sick, and it's from
Exactly,
the
yep.
devil. But the thing is that none of that ever shocked God.
No,
That-
exactly.
He knew it was coming.
Right.
The day that he came into our lives and that we opened the door.
Right.
And so, but man, it's just so easy for us sometimes to get caught up in this stuff and start hating people. And the truth is we're called to hate sin.
Right. Absolutely.
But we need to start with hating our own sin.
Yeah. Yep.
But the reason we hate sin is because it destroys people.
Right.
Sin destroys you. It eats you alive. It will consume you.
Right,
When it gets free, it literally consumes you. Addiction is a perfect example of watching sin consume a person.
Run rapid. Yep.
Whether it be alcohol, drugs, gambling, sexual addiction,
Sex, exactly.
any of it.
Yep.
You can watch it literally eat a person alive.
Absolutely. And then here we go. And then it breaks up your relationship with God.
Yeah.
Not that God is, like, all this. No, it's because sin kind of, you feel so down that you remove yourself out of the goodness of God. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you're at this point, I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're right. Nobody is worthy.
Yeah.
But
Even if I was perfect,
we still
for a
unworthy.
month without-
Exactly.
yeah, I still wouldn't be worthy.
Right. So,
Yeah.
sin can really, build up a wall between you and God.
Yeah.
And you got to be careful with that as well.
Yeah, and I think that, and that's the whole thing, is our own shame. But then you got the enemy who just loves to accuse and to beat down.
Right.
And that's part of, it's so wild in the way people work. Psychology of humanity is, I use the word crazy a lot, but that's because I've been around a lot of psychology.
Right.
And it's a universal.
Right.
But you got the enemy, our own shame that separates us from God because we're embarrassed and all of that, and then the enemy who's beating us down with condemnation. And sometimes the enemy will sometimes you do the right and the just thing and the godly thing and still feel guilty.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure.
And dealing with an addict and having to draw those hard lines.
Right.
You never feel good about that.
Right.
And so sometimes it feels like it can't win.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is where this all started was, we're called to hate sin, but not sinners.
Not sinner. Say that again, please.
So we're called to hate sin, but not hate sinners.
Exactly.
And I think it kind of brings me with the passage that we both looked at, and this is in Matthew 24, verses 9 through 12. And it's talking about the last days. And, nobody knows when the Lord's coming back. And if they tell you exactly when, then change the channel.
Right.
All right? So, but Jesus is talking about the last days. He says, then they will deliver you up to tribulation and put you to death, speaking of God's people. And you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. So if you feel that tension, it was foretold. Jesus knew it was coming.
Right.
And then and this is what's really interesting, because this really speaks to me about the day we're living in. And then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. And I've seen that, where people have walked away from the Lord and then they hate Christians and hate the church and hate people that used to be their close friends.
So he's talking about followers.
Yeah,
right? Following.
Away. Former followers were falling away. It's good that you draw
brought
attention
that up.
to that.
Right.
And then many false prophets will rise and lead many astray. And because lawlessness will be increased, this is the ESV, the love of many will grow cold. And we are living in the most lawless season.
Yep, absolutely.
And, and it's been very interesting because, we that sense of lawlessness or and that hatred, it just tends to cause our hearts to grow cold, and it's a struggle. I think today, the day we're living in, is just an immense struggle.
Let me ask you to do something, Manny. So, for those that don't know, explain what lawlessness means.
So lawlessness is really comes along with godlessness. And so lawlessness is basically that loss of, we are all born with a conscience. Well, the vast majority of us are born with a conscience. There are exceptions. But, and God's image is found in that conscience that says,
Right.
this is wrong. And so, Al has this really cool MacBook, and I love Mac computers, and I don't have one. But the image of God in me says, don't be taking Al's computer.
Right.
That's not yours. That's stealing, and that's wrong. And so there's some things that really 25 years ago we all pretty much agreed on. There's a lot of, we all mostly agreed on the basics of morality.
Right.
But now it's anything goes.
Yeah.
And whatever I want, and so rather than dealing with this standard that says I need to live up to it, now it's just whatever I want or whatever I feel.
Right.
There's no external standard or governance, which is really the Holy Spirit
Right.
and God's image in us. And unfortunately, we've really seen our society degrade to where now, it's insane to me that people go and attack people and, can't have a conversation and disagree without pulling out mace and spraying somebody in the face with it because you don't like their opinion.
Right. Yeah.
That's lawlessness.
Yeah, and that's sad. Thank you for explaining that. And it's sad, but as you was talking, I'm thinking, okay, you remove God out of the picture, then you run into chaos.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? You remove God out of the picture, okay, there's no love. Now there's nothing but hatred. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, it don't surprise me that that's what we're facing now, because we want to put God in a box. We want to pretend like he don't exist.
Yeah.
And if we act like that, there's no love of God inside of us. So therefore, we're easily persuaded to follow hatred, and we justify it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like you said, there's no standard. Come on, man.
Yeah, and it is. It's very upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really upsetting. And you're exactly right. And it's good because with our different minds, you really kind of drilled in on the reality that when we take God out of the picture, then really that leaves us to seeking power and personal gratification, and then basically, if you're in my way, I hate you.
Right.
And unfortunately, I think that's what's behind the whole commercial-driven influencer thing is that if I can get them to hate so and so, that serves my purposes, and so I will manipulate that, and I will basically exaggerate things to paint them into the most heinous villain that I can, and when it comes to our politicians and stuff, I think they need to be held. I know, and I insist that they be held to the same standard we are, that if they commit a behavior that's illegal for us, it's illegal for them. The penalty that we would get in a court of law
they should
be the same for them. There should be no double standard. Okay? That's but that's based on facts, not on opinion. And not on hearsay, and not on, there are strict rules of evidence. I've got a pre-law degree, but there are strict standards for what evidence is admissible in a court of law, and those are actually meant to protect the guilty. And I'm not saying that our system is perfect, because I know that it is not. But the truth of the matter is that those standards are pretty high. So getting a conviction, you really got to have your act together. But if that fits, then that should be the case. However, slander, paying people to say things, those sorts of things, which the Bible calls false witness, which is condemned in the Bible. All of that is way out of bounds, and unfortunately, we have people on both sides of the political spectrum who take part of the truth and then they manipulate that And and that's what's really sad, is that people get manipulated into hating one another. And the Bible said that day is coming. Jesus said that day is coming, and we may be living in it now.
Right now, exactly.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is, here we go. I think it's the beginning stage, so we haven't much really got into the heart of it right now.
Yeah.
So
that's terrifying.
yeah, it is very, very. I mean, I think about our school system. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And every day I try to pray for those Christian teachers, because I'm talking about in public schools, because they have to stand their ground, but it's
Yeah.
hard to,
Yeah.
especially
The
when
system is against you now.
Exactly. So it's almost like you're fighting against the current. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Instead of just riding along. But so stand. This is the deal with me, Manny. God have to be in the picture.
Yeah.
No matter what. I mean, outside of God, we don't even much have the ability to love people the way they deserve to be loved.
Yeah. See, and that's perfectly sets up. This is a passage from Romans 5, and so here's some good news. And I love this. Now, the law came to increase the trespass. In other words, that means that, just like when Brenda makes bacon for the ladies' lunch or breakfast, and I
Right.
can't have it.
Uh-huh.
Well, she lays down the law: don't touch the bacon.
Right.
Well, you know what that makes me do?
Touch the baby.
I want to get that bacon. And I don't even much need the law, but then add that
Right,
to it, it
right.
almost makes it worse. It
Right,
does make it worse. And
right.
but anyway, so that makes us aware of those desires and that they're wrong. But here's the beauty right here, is that but where sin increased, grace abounded all the more.
Yeah.
Romans 5,
That's
verse
beautiful.
20.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that God's plan of salvation in the midst of mankind's fallenness, His grace increased to keep pace with that. And I think we believers, it's like, oh man, I'm so glad that God's grace is greater than my sin.
Right.
And we appropriate that for ourselves. Thank God your grace is so great. But
What about the other?
what about us applying grace
Right, exactly.
with people's sin?
Yep.
And but the thing is God's grace is there.
Right.
We have to choose to access that grace
Right.
for others.
Right.
We love to access it for ourselves, and though I'm not going to say that's easy, because I'm a sensitive conscience guy, and so but I know that struggle. But on the other hand, the truth is that we need to be as eager to access that grace, to love and forgive others in the midst of their sin, not saying their sin is okay,
Right.
not acting like it's not sin, not redefining doctrines and whatnot to fit people's sin.
Right.
But to love people in the midst of their sin, because that's what God has done and is still doing for us.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
and so I think that's so important for us in this day where lawlessness is causing our hearts to grow cold. God's Spirit is trying to pull us the exact opposite direction, to have grace with people
Right.
that are just like we used to be,
Exactly. And still is.
and still are at the level. Absolutely.
Say, the Word of God said that it's the goodness of God that calls man to repentance, right?
Oh, yes.
Here we go. So how much more if instead of judging, instead of clowning people or roasting people because of their failures or what they've done, that we really allow God goodness to shine through us, that have the ability to change people's hearts and make them draw closer to God. But I think when it comes to Christian, we cause people run away from God because of how we're treating them. We choose not to show them grace.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
And
saying?
if God did that, He'd run us off.
Exactly. Exactly.
And what's sad is that I think the church has the media has taken those examples of the judgmental people,
Right.
the Pharisaical people, and that's pretty much what everybody thinks the church is.
Exactly. Yep.
And so when they come in and they're loved, and and the message is still clearly biblical,
Right,
which does
right.
deal with those shades
Right.
of this is God's plan, man and woman, right?
Right.
Waiting till marriage for sex,
Right.
between a man and a woman, and still holding that standard,
Right.
knowing that all of us fall short of the glory of God.
Exactly.
But we're not going to compromise the standard.
Right.
And it's funny because, just as you said, when we experience the love of God, He draws us in. When we, and when everybody's expecting judgment, of course, who wants to come and get judged?
Exactly. Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
it's just really, really, I think, so much truth in that, and I really believe that where sin increased, God grace increased all the more. Then that has to apply to us, and God's grace being tapped in us to love people,
Yep.
with the
Yep.
purpose of redemption.
Right. Right. Right.
You know, and redemption means that adds value to.
Right.
And so, because man, I mean, I remember feeling totally worthless, and God taking me and offering me acceptance and
Right.
love, and the truth is I wanted His acceptance and love enough that I didn't much miss the weed. I didn't
Right,
much miss
right,
any
right.
of the
All the other
speed
stuff, right,
and,
exactly.
and the drunkenness
Right,
and the
right.
carousing. So when I got, when I found the love of God, man, all the other stuff just didn't attract me like
Right.
it did.
Right.
And that, I mean, I was 17 then, and I've never touched any of those drugs or any of that
Right.
since. I've been faithful to my wife for 39
Right,
years.
right.
And so
Right.
that, and I thank God for that,
Amen.
because that's not the norm, and I know that's not the norm. But yet for me, and it's not that I don't deal with temptation.
Right. Right. Right.
And
Right.
whatnot, but it's just I'm just very thankful to be able to sit up here and look, my friend who knows me so well straight in the face and say, I've never
You've been good.
been with the woman
You've
I'm with
been
my
good,
wife,
right.
which is good because he might have to beat me.
Right,
if I didn't,
right.
'cause- and but I just never. What God offers is so much better.
Right. Right.
That
Right.
I don't want to sacrifice.
Right.
That.
Something you were saying earlier, boss, that judgment, and how a lot of people are afraid to step inside of a church because of being judged and things like that. I think about Hunter, dude. How
Yeah.
he got caught up in so much crap,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And making bad choices. And he was someone that grew up in the church,
Yeah.
his whole family, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yet he was like, I didn't expect, kids to circle around me and love me when I came into 24/7 youth
Yeah.
ministry. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And that blows me away. So I'm like, how many other people feel that way, that they can't come to God's house and experience God's love and His forgiveness and His grace? So therefore they stay away.
Well, and I think that's such a perfect example, because, even us as Christian leaders, when we fall short and we know it,
Right.
it's just so, that condemnation, and the enemy is, when I hear people talking like the devil's an easy mark, man, he's been around
For a long time.
forever, and
Right.
he knows exactly how to work you.
Right,
He
exactly.
knows exactly how to accuse you,
Right.
and manipulate you,
Right.
and he's an expert with Pastor Manny. He knows exactly which buttons to push. He knows how to manipulate me,
Right.
and I would love to say, oh, I'm totally wise to his schemes, and when
You're
I'm
not.
in my right mind, I am.
Right,
But
right,
the truth
right.
is when we feel that distance, it can happen to anybody.
Anybody, yep.
And Hunter's a great example because he's grown up here,
Right,
and he knows this church.
right,
But man, even in the midst of that, it's so easy. Just a great example for that.
right, right.
You know?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, and I think that's so important for each of us to understand. He knows exactly what buttons to push.
Exactly.
And for me, I mean, he knows my buttons.
Right. He knows mine, man.
Yeah,
He knows
see?
mine. And the sucky thing about it is that, and I know we don't supposed to give the enemy credit or, all this acknowledgement thing, but you got to know your enemy.
Yeah.
You got, I mean, when you was in the military, when you it's time to go fight, you had to understand who you're fighting against.
Yes,
you know what I'm
absolutely.
saying? So it's like we can't be ignorant.
Of the enemy's devices.
Of the enemies, exactly, right there, and that's straight from the Bible, right
Yeah,
there.
that's it. That's where I took it. Yeah. That's
So
what you were alluding to.
right, exactly. So we really we need to know who we fighting against, but we also need to know that who we fighting for is a whole lot bigger than who we fighting against.
That's
You know
so
what I'm
true.
saying? But don't be stupid. Like Pastor Manny said, he been around for thousands of years.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And we like to call him stupid, but he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, yeah, and for me to have the arrogance to think that I'm going to come up with some gimmick to just tie him up.
Right, right.
You know, I mean, we do have that authority to bind. That's not what I'm referring to.
Right.
But for me to have the arrogance to think I'm going to outsmart him, that would be stupidity on my part.
Right.
Epic scale.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done some pretty good stupid in my day. So but with that, and I think, you know, just kind of a good place to wrap this right back around.
Right.
Is that all this hatred, division, and chaos. And I'm so glad you used that word chaos, because, man, I think if anything describes the condition of the world system and even our country at a great level, is since COVID, chaos has reigned. And part of that
Exactly.
chaos is division.
Exactly.
And the enemy, we need to just call it out for what it is.
Right.
This is the enemy's playground for hatred and division.
Exactly. Exactly.
We can't participate in the world's foolishness and sin.
Right,
I'm not
right.
saying that. I'm not calling for, quote, unity, unquote, in the sense of, yeah, we're all just going to kumbaya together. But I am saying that we are called to love people in the midst of their sin, because
Right.
when our sin increased, God's grace increased all
Right,
the more.
right.
So we need to live in that grace all the more, and we need to understand that the entity behind the division and the hatred and the chaos is the enemy, and the last thing God's people need to do is contribute to it,
Right.
but rather we should be the counter to it,
Right.
and
Right.
bring people together under the banner of Christ and redemption,
Right,
with the sole
right.
purpose of redemption.
Exactly,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? I just want to be so clear, because so many people are compromising.
Right.
I don't want to compromise, but I do want to see people redeemed.
Redeem.
And,
Exactly.
and I don't want to be part of the hatred and the division and the judgment
Right.
that is so prevalent in today's world.
And you know, you're gonna be preaching on something that I'm excited about Sunday, knowing that, you know, sin don't have that power over
Yeah,
you anymore.
right, yeah.
You know
God
what I'm
broke
saying? Exactly. And I'm excited about that, to be able to, you know, live this life. Not talking about in heaven. We're talking about right here, when you really have a knowledge and understanding that sin don't have that power, don't have that strong grip, especially when you're in Jesus Christ. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And you can live free. You know, you can raise hell. You hear what I'm saying? You can destroy, you know, the works of the enemy. And it's like, wow, man, I think a lot of people battle with that.
Agreed. And you know, and it's so funny, because sometimes we are so black and white in the sense that who I am now is vastly different than who I was when I got saved at 17.
Right.
And moral purity, so many things are so vastly different from when I was that age. And so, but the thing is that then we have one slip, and then all of a sudden we're like we are just totally messed up, reprobate.
Right,
You know.
right.
So there's that side of it. But the truth of the matter is none of us will ever be perfect on this side of
Right,
glory. But man,
right.
we can sure be better all the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, God has been calling me out on stuff, and it's great. That's the thing, is because He's making me a better man.
person,
And the truth
exactly.
is I will be a happier.
Right.
You know, my
right,
life will be better.
Right.
Because and here's the thing: is the stuff He's calling me out. It's like I gotta die.
Right. Yeah.
I gotta die
yeah,
to this.
Yeah. Die.
And the more die. And so, which we got to find that for Sunday.
Okay.
And so I've been meaning to tell you that. So, but you know, the thing is that he just really pointed out something, and it's through J.D. Greer. J.D. Greer said something that he just popped me right between the eyes. Bless his heart. Thank you, sir. And like J.D. Greer's going to listen to my
Right. Hey, you never know. You never know.
But, you know, bless your heart, sir, because it was just, you know, is that, man, if I die to this is something that's made me miserable for a year,
Right.
because it's one of those things that, you know, it's like Jesus ain't enough, and you start pursuing junk, and we all get caught up.
Right.
And so, and it's like, you know what? I just need to die.
Die,
right there.
yeah.
That just
Yeah, yeah,
die.
yeah,
And so,
yeah.
so yeah, it's just really been good.
That's good
And,
stuff, man.
and
That's
so
good stuff.
That's what we're here for, man. The more that we die to the junk and the craziness that drives us up the wall, the better off we are. And that's the beauty of who God is, because he really wants to take us farther. And we have these desires and we have these passions, and when they're directed towards God, they bring you life. But when they're directed to the things of this world, number one, they will never fully satisfy. And because of that, you'll always want more and more, and it will never lead you where you need to go. And so this world, we're not meant to be satisfied by the stuff of this world. We were made to be eternal. We were made to be in the presence of God. And until we are there, we will never be fully 100%. You can be content, but you'll never be 100% fully satisfied with what the world offers. And so it's important for us to keep our eye on the prize, because nothing else is going to come close. And if anything else owns our passion, it will consume us and lead us in a place we don't want to go. So God bless you guys. We hope that you'll join us next week. And hopefully this will help you. Don't fall into the world's hatred and chaos. Don't contribute to the chaos. I guess that'll be the catchphrase. Don't contribute to the chaos. So God bless you. We hope you have a great week.